Crypto products are unregulated and could be highly volatile. Please be aware of the risks before investing.
राज, बाबूजी के आशीर्वाद से हमने अपनी नई शुरुआत तो कर ली, पर अपना फ्यूचर प्लान कैसे करें?
बड़े बड़े शहरों में ऐसी छोटी छोटी बातें होती रहती हैं।
Looking for perfect start? Get a Bitcoin today. Download the Uno Coin app.
जब मैं तेरी उम्र का था ना, तो एक सक्सेसफुल करियर, लॉन्ग टर्म प्लानिंग सब रेडी करके रख चुका था। और एक इन महाराज को देखो, पूरा दिन फोन में लगा रहेगा।
दैट प्लानिंग तो मैंने भी कर रखी है, ऊनो कॉइन के साथ।
नए जमाने के साथ नई चीजें आजमाएं। Looking for Bitcoin? Download the Uno Coin app.
Guys, we really need to work hard. This wasn't a good quarter. Tell me, are you happy with this?
Uno coin.
Want to earn Bitcoin? Just grab your phone and shake it. Download the Uno Coin app.
Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin.
Get a systematic buying plan from the Uno Coin app to get your Bitcoin today. Download the Uno Coin app.
Okay, now once again we are back for another episode of Uno Coins Weekly Live, जहाँ पर हम हर हफ्ते बात करते हैं different topics के बारे में and consistently past few weeks we have been talking about Bitcoin and for the good reasons. क्योंकि अब गर्मी के तापमान के साथ क्योंकि अब गर्मी के तापमान के साथ बिटकॉइन का प्राइस भी बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रहा है। यहाँ पे बैंगलोर में वी आर फेसिंग वाटर क्राइसिस, एट द सेम टाइम बिटकॉइन इज आल्सो फेसिंग लिक्विडिटी क्राइसिस, क्योंकि मार्केट से जितना सारा भी बिटकॉइन है वो ये ईटीएफ्स खाए जा रहे हैं एंड यू नो ये जो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियां है दे हैव बीन सकिंग अप ऑल द मार्केट सप्लाई. बट okay, Sunny, we have Sunny here. So like I was saying, ETFs are sucking up the market supply. The halving is coming up and it's gonna be a very major supply shock in the coming days. So what's it's gonna be like? We're gonna talk about everything today with our special Bitcoin expert, Mr. Sunny Ray, the co-founder and the president of Uno Coin. Hi Sunny, how are you doing today?
I'm perfect. How are you, Shababi?
Oh, I'm great too, and I'm also very energetic because as I see water crisis and all the heat and everything getting very prominent over here in Bangalore. At the same time, I'm also looking at the Bitcoin's price going up, and there's crisis in the market because there's no Bitcoins. These ETFs and everything, they're sucking up the maximum supply whatever's being produced. So I mean, it's a very interesting scenario to look at. And our today's topic says Bitcoin a speculative asset or long-term financial security. Now with the price going up, major people, like the most amount of people whosoever is going to come into this piece, are going to think of it as a more speculative thing, but who have been here, they know it's a long-term financial security. So just to begin with, what do you think about the current whole thing that is happening with the liquidity, with ETF companies sulking up the supply whatever is being produced, and again in a few days you're gonna have a supply shock with having. So what do you think how it's gonna look like?
I'm just equally excited as every time, even more so. It's just it's all happening exactly how we've been talking about right now for the last, 10 years. So, yeah, I think, the macro picture is kind of what we've been talking about. You have, again, I think the story of the year is probably going to be these ETFs, BlackRocks and others who are acquiring astronomical amounts of Bitcoin, and they're taking it off the market and providing it to their customers. Um, so I think that's huge. I don't know what the number is. Is it like 14,000 Bitcoins or something a day or a week?
Yeah,
A week that they're pulling off the market. And then you have something like 800 or something like that that's like coming into the market
around 9
from
in a day.
there you go. So you know better than me. So 900 and something. And in a month, I was looking yesterday at the halvening cycle, and in a month, we're going to have half as many Bitcoins coming in. So you're going to have demand that's just skyrocketing week to week. And then on the flip side, you have supply being shrunk. So I don't know. I mean, again, I think most people can probably get their head around the basic idea of supply and demand, and if demand outstrips supply 10 to 1, 100 to 1, I mean that's usually a bullish sign. So the short answer, I mean, to this bigger question, if people don't have time to stick around, is the latter. I mean, I personally believe I think a lot of people, I think there's an argument to be made that it's a highly speculative asset, which it's hard to step away from that frame given the volatility, right, that Bitcoin faces, given that it's only still, a baby, 13-year-old kid. So it's not, super, it hasn't been around for that long. But, the idea is that it is probably the most, the best long-term financial security tool that we have in our toolbox to get ahead, right? To save your life force and to someday be able to become financially free. Bitcoin, I think, presents the best opportunity for that. So excited to be talking about it again. And yeah, like you said, things are really heating up. I was looking, our volumes at UnoCoin were up like at one point, like 1,000% from a month. So people are coming back to trade in droves. Yeah, it's great. It's great. So I think the activity's starting to return, and now that we're past the all-time high, people care. I mean, I'm getting, oh my God, it's so funny. People like at the gym, in life, people calling all the time. Hey, congratulations! It's like okay, congratulations to you too, I guess, right? Because Bitcoin's for everyone.
Absolutely, and interestingly, so everybody who in the previous cycle had purchased Bitcoin in the range of 60 to 68, and they were all crying, we bought it so expensive. Now we don't know what to do with it. It's gone all down, 96% low. Now all the people who have ever purchased Bitcoin, from the last cycle now, they are all, in profit, and that's the happiest news because I kept on sending that message to everybody who were like, my portfolio is down by 96%, 97%. I'm like, okay, what's your portfolio like right now? Because I was too happy to share that, because you listened to me, you trusted in it, and you left, let your funds be in it rather than taking it out. And talking about long term security, Sunny, a lot of people would think of Bitcoin as a short term money making machine because we have seen significant gains in the short term, but even more significant gains in the longer runs. And gains is not something that you look at when you're talking about a store of value. You look at what is not first depreciating the value of the money that you're producing. So what are some of the reasons that you would list to say that it's not a short term, rather a long term thing to look at for for a middle class person in terms of investment?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, in general, I think like if you look at it, um, I mean, it sounds. I mean, yesterday Michael Saylor had this like funny comment about. I don't know if you saw it, but some lady was asking him, "So, Michael, when are you going to sell your Bitcoin?" He's like, what do you mean? Whoever has the most Bitcoin wins. And he says anybody that measures their wealth in fiat is poor. And so, but if you think about it, poor people do tend to have shorter time horizons, right? They're just thinking about today and tomorrow. Whereas like one of the reasons, wealthy people kind of break free of the matrix is because they're able to step back and appreciate, what's happening and really think about it and establish a thesis or like kind of a conviction around what might happen in the future. And so, yeah, so when you're looking at, I think I would say anything, like, even if you're like planning your financial future, let's say, right? Like you're trying to become financially free, like 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. So if you're looking for like a quick buck, a quick return, Bitcoin may provide that for you, right? But there's a probability, a quite high probability that if that's your mindset, you're probably going to leave with nothing because the volatility will shake you out, right? Like let's say you come into Bitcoin when it would hit the all-time high, and then I think a few days ago it went from that to like 10% down.
Yes.
So if you are somebody who just, let's say, put, 100,000 whatever currency units in there and all of a sudden it drops to 90,000, you're like, oh my God, like at this rate I could lose everything. But again, if your mentality is like, okay, I'm going to keep buying. Oh, it went down. Good. I'm going to get exposure to more. Oh, it went up. Great. My Bitcoin value went up. If you kind of take that philosophy, it's a lot easier, at least from what I've seen, in terms of, being able to break free of all of it. So yeah, so I don't know. I think it's important to take a long term view. I think Bitcoin fits that long term if you can, and it's tricky, right? I mean, if you watch our show, you probably get a glimpse of like what's going on, but there's so much to learn and and to research. I'm actually in San Francisco this week, and so we had a like a party at this Airbnb here. And yesterday I was trying to explain to some people because everybody's asking now, oh, what's Bitcoin going on? And I was just trying to explain, like what the fundamentals are. And in the crypto Bitcoin space, there's just so much going on that if your mind is like, oh, Solana, Ethereum, oh, Doge, oh, meme coins, oh, this coin, oh, that coin. And it's kind of hard to, again, get a sense of what's going on. And you left with this feeling like, oh, it's just a casino. And I'll just bet on whatever my friend's saying. But no, the key is step back, try and understand what Bitcoin is actually about, try and understand before that even what money is about, because if you don't understand what money is, trying to explain to you what Bitcoin is really hard. And from my experience, 99.9% of people have never asked that question around what is money. So try to understand what money is, the history of money, and then kind of start to, try and watch some of our videos, read the white paper. Khan Academy, by the way, anyone who's trying to get more technical kind of into it, Khan Academy offers a great, set of resources where you can learn about it. But maximize learning and try and take a long-term view. And like we always say, dollar cost average, take custody of your Bitcoin, don't leave it on an exchange. And that's it, right? It's pretty simple, just and just learn about it. And really, I don't even suggest to people that you need to leave your life and start, devoting your career to Bitcoin. You have to start doing a podcast. You have to build an exchange. No, you just need to do whatever you do best and live on, less than that and put the rest or put a little bit into Bitcoin every month. That's kind of the strategy, yeah, and have a long-term outlook. So, like you said, everyone that's listened to us over the last 10 years is in the green. They're in the profit, right? I mean, will this moment last forever? No, it'll go down, it'll go up. But right now, it definitely feels like we're in a bull run.
Absolutely, it's all the bull run magic, and apparently on my Instagram as well. The reason why I asked you this question, Sunny, is because on my Instagram reel section, there's this one guy. He makes content around crypto and stuff like that, and he's been coming up again and again. And I find his content very irritating, to be honest, because the kind of reasons he's giving behind the price surge and why you should not invest in Bitcoin, rather go for small meme coins, and I was just astounded to look at it, because that guy is a UPSC aspirant turned crypto content creator. So I was astounded to look at the way he was trying to bring things around. Like, okay, comment section needs my little things to say on. So obviously, I mean, misinformation again is another thing amid the bull run that's surging a lot. And my question is around that. But before that, we have a comment here in the comment section from Ashok Gupta, who's asking, how do you assess the risk to reward ratio of investing in Bitcoin compared to traditional assets over the next decade?
I think it'll be super, super risky to not invest in Bitcoin. Uh, the risk to reward ratio, I think it'll be outsized in favor of Bitcoin. I think, and here's the thing is the truth is that the thesis is so strong that you don't need to, like I said, bet the bank or bet the farm on Bitcoin. You just need to have exposure. You need to have skin in the game. And to do that, that could be as simple as 100 rupees a month or 1,000 rupees a month or whatever it
Like
might be.
very,
Just
very minimal amount.
yeah, exactly. And if Bitcoin does what it does, I used to, I mean, a lot of people used to say, oh, just get your hand on one Bitcoin. If you can get one Bitcoin, you'll be good. I don't think it's that anymore. I think it's zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. Get your hand on zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, or or maybe even it's 0.01. Who knows? Like the way things are going, get some exposure, and also don't put more money into it than you can afford to lose. So we're not saying, take a tremendous amount of risk, but then again, even having some skin in the game, some exposure, 1% of your net worth, 1% of your cash flow, whatever it might be, even if you have a company now, I mean, if you're seeing what Michael Saylor is doing, oh my goodness, it's crazy. And now more and more companies are starting to go, hey, it's risky not to have Bitcoin because the way money is being printed. I mean, Bitcoin is essentially it's insurance on money printing. If you believe that the government will continue doing what they've been doing for the last, whatever, a couple 100 years in terms of keep printing money, keep coming up with random emergencies, and then just diluting our purchasing power, if you believe that that's going to continue happening, there's a good chance Bitcoin will continue going up in price. But if you believe that the opposite will happen, the governments will all of a sudden become super responsible and fiscally sound, then I wouldn't be coming on, every week going, Bitcoin's going to be the future of money because that's really it's kind of like a measuring stick almost, like a ruler, thermometer, right? That keeps everyone else honest. And like I said, if you look at what's happening, most people are not honest, and politicians are doing what politicians do, and people are like, I had an Airbnb driver yesterday from to the airport, and he was just explaining how life is so difficult, and like because of inflation and like grocery prices and everything. So the average person is hurting. But when you ask them, like, why is everything going up in price? Like, have you ever thought of that? I don't know, demand maybe, or like nobody really knows.
I've heard the most common reason as population, the growing population.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
It is, I know. And so not only have they printed it, inflated it, they've also misdirected people to the point where they've convinced them that, oh, it's the entrepreneurs. That's why inflation happening. They're greedy. They're trying to take all the money. Hello, you just doubled the money supply in the last 3 years. Like, wouldn't you think that would have a way greater effect? Anyways, so I digress. I think, yeah, the risk reward ratio, in my view, it's show me something that's better. And I'll gladly take advice, but I've yet to find something that's even close. And I'm talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. I'm not talking about, and if you look, Shambhavi, like what's been moving this year, it's Bitcoin, right?
Bitcoin.
It's not the others. Yeah, exactly. So it's not because usually people say, oh, when Bitcoin moves, everything moves, and everything will move faster than Bitcoin. Yeah, maybe, but we haven't seen that this year, right? So there might be a point where that doesn't continue happening, especially a point where you have companies like BlackRock buying all the Bitcoin. Like that's not happening with the other ones yet. Yeah?
Absolutely, and the most interesting thing about Bitcoin and these other tokens is even like I was talking about misinformation. There's this one influencer that I was talking about that who's telling people like explore meme coins, explore these coins, explore that coins, and there's this one more influencer that I happen to have a little chat with, like a few months back, and then a person just came up and asked like what do I invest in if I'm looking at a 10-year perspective. So he does talk about all the tokens and stuff to trade, to invest, all that stuff. But he was like, bro, if you want to invest for 10 years, don't think twice. It's the Bitcoin it's Bitcoin what you want to invest in, not anything else. If you're looking at these little tokens, I mean, I cannot give you an insurance saying that it's gonna be existing after a point of time in the crypto world, and there's a high chance that this will all disappear. So that is one thing. And coming to my next question, Sunny, we are gonna see a lot of misinformation, as we have seen, a plenty of misinformation in the past few bull cycles as well around Bitcoin, misconceptions, things like nobody can buy a whole Bitcoin, it's too expensive. And, I remember somebody even saying that, investing in Bitcoin is now impossible because it cannot be fractionalized. So things like that. Besides, there are going to be people who are gonna come to mooch off your money. How do you deal with all of this? Because you have a first-hand experience of dealing with it when people were not around to give you a lot of information. Of course, you were doing your own research and everything to keep your stuff secure and safe. But how was it like? When a scammer comes up, how do you identify them?
Oh, I mean, we could probably do a whole session on just that, but in general, um, okay, your first point you made was around a lot of people think you need to buy a whole Bitcoin. That's a really good point. A lot of people think that, and they think if one Bitcoin is worth $70,000, how can I buy it? It's too expensive. But a lot of people don't realize is that Bitcoin is divisible up to 9 decimal places. So you can buy 0.000001 Bitcoin, which might be, a couple pennies, or a couple, whatever sats worth of Bitcoin. So I think, in fact, yes, just yesterday I was talking to our team, our UnoCoin team about, actually it was Harish who was mentioning, hey, Sunny, should we present Bitcoin in the form of sats? Right? So just be like, oh, let's say you bought 50 rupees worth of Bitcoin. Okay, that is 1,025 whatever sats, right? Instead of 0.00001 Bitcoin. So we might introduce something like that, maybe just an option that you can click a button and now you see sats. But I think that's an important point. So people need to recognize that, and even without us changing any nomenclature, you can, if you get what we're saying right now, which is that you can buy 1,000 rupees, you can buy as little or as much Bitcoin as you want. That's a very important fact. You had another point around, I mean, just scamming. I mean, yeah, buyer beware, obviously, right? So if there are bad guys out there, there are lots of, reported cases of people trying to steal other people's Bitcoin. So, you should be very careful, right? And this is why we talk about taking custody of your Bitcoin. So if you're serious into crypto, into Bitcoin, and you're buying it, you're going to want to take possession to a wallet that you control. In fact, just yesterday I saw the founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, talking about some new, I think, app called BitKey that he launched. I haven't seen too much about it, but I gotta do a bit more digging. But it sounded to me that it's a wallet where you control your own keys. Blockchain.com. There's a whole bunch of them, right? That allow you to hold your own keys. That's a first start. But then, like we talked about, Trezor, Ledger, Cold Card. These are, and I think the Cold Card new wallet is out now as well. So you're gonna wanna, learn about those things and take possession and be very vigilant. And with great, what's the Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility. So Bitcoin is kind of in that realm. Don't put more in it than you can afford to lose. Once you do have, exposure, because even if you have a little bit of exposure and that starts growing the way Bitcoin does, you might very quickly have a lot of exposure. So when you do that, you want to protect yourself and take custody. And, you can Google it and look it up, or, DM one of our team members. We can help you through it as well.
Absolutely. I also believe that, don't be very greedy. That is something that I've seen. People get these messages on Twitter, on Telegram. Telegram mostly, that, send us your Bitcoins, you're going to double it up and send it to you. Things like that. And I'm like, okay, how? But there's only 21 million. How are you going to, what are you going to do? Photocopy my Bitcoins and send it back to me? So
Yeah.
that's very prominent. If you get greedy, you're gonna fall for it, no matter how.
Oh, Shambhavi, there's crazy, crazy stuff happening. I was trying to remember pig butchering.
Okay.
Pig butchering, I think, is like one of the names of these scams, or something like that. It's like a romantic. There's like a romance scam.
Oh yeah, it's
So
happening over
I actually know people in my circle that have like friends or parents or family members that have been affected, and it is crazy. Like somebody will reach out to you, they will try and pretend like they're romantically interested in you, and then they will steal your Bitcoin. Right? So you have to be very, very careful, like very, very careful. And
here.
yeah, and the thing about Bitcoin is that it's so like powerful and subversive that if a bad guy, let's say, scams you with your Visa card, and then you realize you were scammed, you might be able to call the Visa card and say, "Oh, it was a scam, reverse the payment." Or even in a bank case, you could do that. But with Bitcoin, once your Bitcoin leaves your wallet, unfortunately, there's no one else to call. It's like if someone stole your gold jewelry. Who are you gonna call? The gold, god, or the gold police? No, there is nobody, right? It's gone. So with Bitcoin, same thing. Exercise great caution.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very necessary. Nobody can double up your bitcoins. Nobody can make you more bitcoins. Nobody's gonna gift you bitcoins for free, other than some sats or something, that a contest or something. But then no, never give your keys to anyone. Never send bitcoins to any address that you don't want to. Just never do that. There's no remedy for anything if you do that yourself. So we have another question here in the comment section by Bereen. Bireen is asking, hey guys, Bitcoin has many advantages over fiat as everyone knows, but people see Bitcoin from an investment point of view and not as a daily spend. Should we use Bitcoin in our daily usage?
That's a good question. You can, you can, right? We try at Unocoin to make it easier. Like we used to have, gift cards that you could buy. You can send it to other people to settle your debt. Let's say your friend pays for lunch yesterday, you need to pay them back. You can use Bitcoin to do it. But the short answer is, if I was your friend, I would say no. Because like I said, I learned about Bitcoin way back in the day, right? And I remember when I first heard about it, a Bitcoin was like $10 or $20. Today it's like 100,000 Canadian dollars, right? So if I would have bought an item which I have, by the way. I did liquidate. I didn't have this kind of super foresight where I was like, oh, never sell your Bitcoin. Now I'm saying this through experience. But imagine if I would have bought an iPhone for $1,000. That would have been 100 Bitcoins. What's 100 times 100,000? So that iPhone is worth like a country or something like now, right? So it's like it's not something that a lot of people, once they liquidate their Bitcoin, they start feeling antsy about it because they start doing the math and they're like, oh my God, like that $30 I spent, 6 months ago is now worth 300 or whatever. So I think in general, I think Lightning makes it easier to make payments. I do think, and I think that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that there is no easy answer, right? It's definitely a store of value, and we're in this like super bull cycle, so I don't recommend using Bitcoin. But look, if Bitcoin, let's say you put a bunch of money into Bitcoin and Bitcoin goes up 1,000%, you're not going to feel that bad using some of those Bitcoin to go and buy something, pizza or whatever, right? So it's like you got to make your own call. I mean, in short, if I had a gun to my head, I would say don't. Like if you have other rupees or if you have cash flow from your job or whatever, use that because we know that's going down. That's guaranteed to lose value. Whereas with Bitcoin, history is definitely not on your side if you're betting against it.
Absolutely. And even, you know, after some time, it's gonna become a medium of exchange as well. Maybe not now, maybe at the time, we are very old and our grandsons and grandchildren are actually, are kind of dealing with money. Maybe at that time, maybe I'm being, very safe and I'm imagining this. It could be earlier than that. But imagine having all those Bitcoin to spend at that point of time. So I mean that would be much more in value as compared to now. And funny thing, Sunny, though it's very rhetoric, but I still like to mention this very often. We saw last ETH around $69,000 US dollars. Now after 2 years, when this mark has been reached and a new ETH has been established, so many people do not realize that, but the US dollar has inflated so much that to beat that value in US dollar, Bitcoin actually has to go around somewhere 74.5 thousand dollars in US
Interesting.
dollar value. So I see how Bitcoin is yet increasing in value, but the US dollars value has decreased so much. So I mean that's a big alarm in itself that you see it's very rhetoric, but then again a lot of people happen to miss out this fact. So this is the way economy is just and Bitcoin is. So I mean it's everybody's call to look at it, be smart about it, and make their decisions. And coming to another question, Sunny, uh, just give me one quick second. My laptop's stuck. So, one major reason why a lot of people think of Bitcoin as a very speculative asset, and why people. Okay, we have a question here, and then I'll bring up my question. Vivier is asking, do you think there is too much exposure to Bitcoin?
Who? Like it depends on the person. I mean, if they
Like,
don't have any Bitcoin or
yeah.
there's too much, oh, is there like, can you have too much Bitcoin? See, like on one side, I say, um, don't put more than you can afford to lose. Be very careful because I'm talking to like, whenever I do these podcasts, I'm pretending like I'm talking to somebody for the first time. And for that, someone like that, if your knowledge base is super low, I do not recommend putting a lot of money into it. I do suggest first increasing your knowledge base, your education base. And as your knowledge base increases and your confidence goes up, you start to get more and more exposure. Michael Saylor said it best. He who gets the most number of Bitcoins win. Okay? Bitcoin is the exit strategy. Keep that in mind. Bitcoin is, I mean, once you've been orange pilled, once you see the light, you start to realize that Bitcoin is money. And again, I'm not saying it's there. It's still experimental. It's still early. But with every passing day, and when the Black Rocks get in, and the nation states start adopting, and the Elon Musks, and the it starts at one point. You need to start thinking like, what do these people know that I don't? And so, look, I mean, I think there's this concept called like hyper Bitcoinization, which is just this like moment in time where Bitcoin goes parabolic, where anything we've seen thus far will be eclipsed, where they talk about God candle, which is like a $10,000 candle in one day, right? Where the price goes up. Um, so again, I think be like obviously cautious. Always keep savings in rupees or dollars, so so that you can pay your bills. Don't don't ape into Bitcoin or whatever. But again, I do recommend most people focus on learning, focus on education, and slowly ramping up, your Bitcoin exposure. And again, I don't think you can say it's too much or too little. It depends on you, depends on your risk tolerance, depends on your age, and depends on what you believe. But someone like, what's his name, Michael Saylor, he's not slowing down at all. He's speeding up. He's buying more. So yeah. So I think for him, it's not enough exposure. He wants more.
And also, I believe, Sunny, this one thing that during the bear cycle, right, all of us believers of Bitcoiners, believer of this market, believer of, better money, we all look like fools in front of everybody, who we're trying to explain Bitcoin. And suddenly, when the price goes up, we all become their center of knowledge for, all of this stuff. So, like, you have been there for longer, and you have been there since the time Bitcoin was actually labeled as a scam. So, how was it, how did you feel when during a bear cycle you're like a fool to people? You're talking about Bitcoin, they're like, oh, whatever he's saying doesn't matter. And then comes the bull run and the price starts to rally, and people are like, oh, you were talking about Bitcoin, right? What is it? Tell me more. So, how has your experience been about that?
I mean, you and I have been doing these podcasts for 2 years.
Yeah.
Have I talked about anything besides Bitcoin? And has my level of excitement or interest gone up or down as a function of price? Like every time we do this, I'm just like, ah. But I think that conviction comes from doing a lot of research and doing a lot of studying, as Aditya would say, right? Study Bitcoin, and to this day, I read books like the Bitcoin Standard. I'm reading it again. I read Mastering Bitcoin.
Even I'm reading it again ahead of having.
Exactly. So, and Bitcoin is so complex, and there's so much to it. Cryptography. There's game theory. There's economics. There's math, computer science. I mean, there's just so many things going on that it's just marvelous. And you just like you just it's just you just keep the story of Satoshi, the history of it, like mining, like every element of Bitcoin to me is just marvelous. And so I'm very, very much intrigued by the concept of Bitcoin and the white paper and the code, not necessarily the price. I feel that the price is going to go shooting to the moon, and I've been saying that for whatever 10, 11 years. But I feel that because I feel I have an understanding of what the money system, like what it is, like like how it works or how it doesn't work. And then on the flip side, I feel like I have a strong understanding of Bitcoin and the things that Bitcoin stands for. I believe the world needs more than ever, right? Like censorship resistance, open source, right? Decentralization, like being able to send value across the ocean at the click of a button for free. Like it just everything, like I said, like money is such an important concept, right? Like we all wake up early in the morning, we go to bed late at night, we go to school, for the first third of our life. We get into divorces, we get into wars over money. Yet most people don't even know what money is. They don't even understand it. They can't define it. So the fact that Bitcoin steps into that void and says, I am the future of money, or I might be the future of money, and just gets people to start thinking about what is money and then what is the future of money, to me is like it's just the biggest thing ever, right? And like I said, I think as people, as companies, and as countries start to do that more and more and more, I think the future of money is Bitcoin. So it's inevitable.
True. And I think when I met Satvik for the first time when I came to the Unocoin office for that meetup, I think one very interesting example that Satvik used to explain it to me, why people started talking about what is money, is imagine it like that. People are walking and suddenly there's an invention called cycle, and it just makes it more efficient to travel, but people were not questioning and that travel procedure, no matter how long it was, no matter how tiring it was, until cycles came. And when cycle came in, it made them question themselves, saying, why not this is what it should be and not this. So I mean, all of these analogies and everything, Bitcoin is just so strong. It just its foundation is so strong, like you say, thesis is so strong, and people just need to understand that. That is something very important. Once they understand that, like you said, the price mark, the volatility side of the things, they all are very momentary. Like these are for the people who are very new to. If you look at people talking about volatility and stuff, that I have seen only for two reasons. That is either they don't know much about it, or second, they're traders. So these are the two case scenarios where I have seen people talk about volatility. So I mean, yeah. So here we have we're saying something more in the comment section. We were saying I'm sitting on 70% exposure and I think it's too little.
I mean, it all depends. It all depends. Like, yeah, I mean, just some basic things, like I said, is if it depends. Like, if you're totally young, you live with your parents. I'm not saying this is the case with this individual, but I'm saying if you're that kind of person and you don't have kids, you don't have more like a house or a car payments, then yeah, being 70% in Bitcoin, I mean, if I was young and I had a big time horizon where even if it went down over the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, I don't care. If I'm just accumulating, I think that person has a very different kind of risk tolerance than somebody who's, let's say, 85 and that only has, let's say, $10,000 or rupees left to their name. And for that person to put 70% into Bitcoin, I would say no, because if the price crashes in the next 1 year, now that person has lost 70, whatever it is, right? Their percent, a big percentage of their wealth. So you have to, be cautious. You have to also maintain savings for your regular expenses. So if your, monthly expenses is, let's say, 10 currency units, you should have probably 30 to 60 of those currency units in your bank in normal money so that you can pay your bills, you can not worry about it, right? And then after that you might say, okay, Bitcoin is my saving tool, right? And it might be one of many, right, that you're diversifying. Maybe you're buying gold, maybe you're buying stocks, or maybe you're doing other things. But yeah, I think, I mean, to me, that puts a smile on my face. 70%, I like that. But it's risky.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There are people at 99%, 100%, and we talk to Bitcoin maximalists, they're all in. I know, I'm not gonna, this is not a financial advice, it's just a scenario that I'm narrating. It's always good to be cautious. I know individuals who have been in this space for a really long time. Like, we know of them as really, like big shots of the game, and those people have gone all in the sense that they have sold their house, moved into a rented place, and gone all in. So I know people like that, and the kind of trust system that Bitcoin has of people who understand it, it's because what Bitcoin is. And I think anybody knowing Bitcoin completely would might be, I feel like it's a 99 to 1 wala, kind of risk situation. There's 1% chance that it'll fall out. That is again a personal opinion and nothing related to what you do in your research. But that is like my mindset. There's just 1% chance that it might fall out. I feel like 99% is that it's gonna go to the moon. So that is like kind of my theory. But again, When we talk about traditional instruments and what people usually prefer for long term saving of their money, long term kind of keeping the things, and basically to plan their retirement and everything, we see that percentage return on them is also very low. People have plannings like that, and when we compare Bitcoin to that, Bitcoin has given significantly higher gains, and actually astronomical gains. Even significant is not the right words. In the past 10 years itself, like almost 20,000% in the price. So that is the gain, as that was the previous all time high percentage. So I mean, that is not the percentage that people get in the traditional stocks and everything. So if you're comparing to if you're comparing Bitcoin to the traditional stocks, or whatever real estates and golds and all of this, how do we see pros and cons of investing in Bitcoin over all of these?
So there's this concept, I think it's called the barbell approach or something. Nassim Taleb talks about it in a book called The Black Swan. And the way he suggests that you approach risk is, most people they'll just like diversify across lots of different assets and pray for the best. But what he says is that the best strategy is to put most of your money into something that you think will not lose value, right? So like T-bills or like something that's just very conservative. It's like, but it's kind of almost guaranteed, right? Or as close to guaranteed as possible. And then what you do is you take 1% of that total wealth and you just take crazy risk with it, right? Like on something like Bitcoin, if you believe in the Bitcoin, obviously, right? Or something like whatever Tesla stock or whatever it might be. But like if you, the idea is to like make sure that 90% of or 95%, 99% of your wealth is preserved, it's protected, it cannot go anywhere. And then you play with that last 1%. And then even if you lose that 1%, it's okay. Like if the Bitcoin goes to zero, you don't care. But if Bitcoin goes to the moon, even with 1% exposure, it'll make a meaningful difference in your portfolio. I think people who are in stock, mutual funds, if they're looking at Bitcoin, think 1%. Like, don't think higher than that. We're not here telling you, hey, go liquidate all your stocks and mutual funds and put it into Bitcoin. Like, that would be stupid. Mainly because, again, if you're coming from that worldview, you're going to get creamed in Bitcoin, right? But again, if you're looking and you're thinking, oh, I think this thing makes sense. Okay, it could go up a lot more. 1%, like I said, 1% of your cash flow, you can dollar cost average into Bitcoin. 1% of your net worth, you can put into Bitcoin. And not more, right? Not more. Start there and start getting used to it. And then again, go deep. If you're like, okay, no, I want to get 2%, I want to get 5%. My suggestion is learn. And learning is free. Yeah, like with this stuff is open source, so you can go to Khan Academy, you can go to YouTube, you can buy a book, you can read things online, you can ask people. But I would maximize my time spent on learning about Bitcoin. And as I learn more and more and more, and my conviction goes up, I may, like some people, right, like Michael Saylor, like many others, I may develop a conviction that's greater. And I might choose to say 5% of my cash flow now. Every month, whatever I make, I'll put 5 or 10%. Or, you know, some people might even go as high as, like I said, if they're a very young person and they have a long time horizon and they don't have many expenses, they might choose 70%, yeah, or something like higher, where they start getting deeper and deeper. But I definitely wouldn't jump into the deep end. I would exercise, a tremendous amount of caution because you can get burned for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, like you said, I feel like a person should increase the percentage of their exposure also based on their exposure, the kind of knowledge exposure into Bitcoin. Whatever percentage is exposed over there, like keep increasing it like that, as your belief system grows stronger, make your portfolio bigger, and depending on, of course, your financial obligations and everything. So, we're here.
And that's what I say is like, and it doesn't end with just exposure to Bitcoin, right? There's people like me. who went so deep that I started a company and a career in Bitcoin where I get to talk about it every day and learn about it, right? So that's the beauty of Bitcoin is you can technically carve out a brand new future for yourself if you get really serious about it.
True, and indeed, Bitcoin is coming up, and India is going to have so many Bitcoin only companies soon. And I keep talking to so many of my friends, who are into the space that I've been connected with very recently, and I keep talking about that. There are going to be so many Bitcoin only companies in India, serving different user needs, different kind of users. So obviously, that kind of wave is definitely coming. With Bitcoin came blockchain as well. Right now, blockchain developers are so much in demand. So all my cousins and everyone who have been pursuing engineering, they're like, you are there in this stream. How is it like? How is the job situation like? I'm like, just keep learning. Keep increasing your exposure to the stuff. And if you feel like this is something that you want to do, this is something, that is interesting you too much, then maybe think of a career in it. Similar goes for Bitcoin. Like, I think the people who have understood Bitcoin, I think they are looking to make a career in Bitcoin any which ways. And it's the beauty of it that you do what you want to do with a lot of passion. So that's the thing. And
Yeah, somebody, I was gonna say I have another call coming up soon. Should we maybe start wrapping this one up? Do we have any final
yeah, we can
questions?
wrap this up in another 5 minutes if that's fine. 5 minutes good?
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Okay.
I got a call in 10 minutes.
Okay, no worries. So Viv over here is saying, sorry for hijacking the stream, Shambhavi. My system is simple. 50% of my salary goes into mutual funds. Out of the 50 left, I use for bills and lifestyle. Whatever is left goes straight into crypto. Plus the 200 rupees a day SBP, of course. And that leftover money is essentially 70% of my exposure now. Oh,
Is this the person that told us last time that they were
yes,
dollar cost
yes. He was
averaging?
using
Okay,
SBP. Yes. So
person.
I think
Okay, great.
Viv, that's a very great system, and I think you should also share this live with your friends, so that they get to learn about it too. I mean, what we are here to do is talk about it, make more people aware of, what Bitcoin is, what it does. So whosoever is watching, please share it with your folks. Please share it and do let us know in the comment section what do you think about it and what are your opinions on it. It's always great to hear counter opinion on certain things. So it's always lovely. Just to conclude our session today with a final thought, Sunny, on Bitcoin as a speculative asset or long-term financial security. Now, with the changing perspective and the changing times that we have seen, and the exposure that's been coming in with the introduction of Bitcoin ETFs and everything, where do you think, after, I know you don't do price and everything, but talking about hype and adoption, where do you think is Bitcoin going after this supply shock post halving?
I used to think Bitcoin's going to $1 million, and I used to say that was going to be like the day. Now I think $1 million is going to be like the floor. Um, yeah, this is so meaning I'm super, super bullish on Bitcoin. I think, yeah, people need to get their act together, get some exposure. And, there's this feeling of like, oh, I didn't get in early enough, or, oh, Bitcoin is too far ahead and I have to invest in some other coin because I can buy more of it with the same. No, just focus on Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin. The upside is still astronomical. I mean, if anything, I would say in some ways, I'm more bullish today than I was 10 years ago, which is just crazy to say, right? Because how? But I feel like the excitement, the energy, the momentum, the direction everything's going. Like yesterday, I tweeted, "What if there was 100 Michael Saylors? He's buying like $500 million worth of Bitcoin every week or whatever. It feels like you wake up, oh, he's buying 880 million, like oh, but what if you had a play like that being played out by Ambani, by Google, by Apple, by Tesla? Like, let's say this, like, and then you had countries like the El Salvador guy, and then you have Argentina, and then this country and that country, and they all start doing this. You and I will be thinking back, Sunny. Remember we used to say, "Oh, it's going to go to a million." Like, oh, what a joke. So Anyways, do not put more money into Bitcoin than you can afford to lose. Do a tremendous amount of, self-education. And who knows, maybe you'll see the light like we do, or maybe we're wrong. Come to us and tell us why you think we're wrong. But right now it's a hard time to convince us that we're wrong because we just passed the all-time high. Everyone that's ever invested is in the green, and yeah, even the RBI governor last week was talking about. Someone asked him, and his tone was a bit more subdued. And Peter Schiff, oh my God, I enjoyed that one yesterday. Oh, he was talking about how he wished he would have bought Bitcoin. Obviously, who doesn't wish they had? So, don't die with regret. Get a bit of exposure and play with it. Like Bitcoin is fun. You can send it around to your friends. You can tinker with it, and again, maximize your learning. That's where I would say your focus should be.
Absolutely. And I think on this note, we'll be concluding our today's spaces. And thank you everyone for joining in. Very soon, we're going to also start our regular spaces on Twitter. So make sure to follow us on Twitter, where you also get to speak and interact live with us and ask your questions directly and even do some discussions. That's why it's very important to follow us on all the channels I keep telling you, and it's very, very important. I'll see you again next week, same day, same time, with another topic. Till then, bye bye, take care, and keep investing.